What's up, guys? Mike here coming at you from AT Astro, Area of Truth, Aspect, and Relationship Astrology. In this astrological segment, I will be going over a little bit of a darker topic, but one I find very fascinating. Criminality, serial killer aspects. What indicators in a natal chart can point to somebody who is attracted to the darker side of life? Okay, so through my own personal experiences and my fascinating and sometimes terrifying tour of the Texas prison system, I was able to, through using an ephemeris that was sent to me in the mail, able to make natal charts for fellow inmates. So I was able to notice certain patterns in people's charts that I found over time many times can point to criminality. There are certain aspects that point towards more serious forms of criminality than others. But there's a lot of themes that I've been able to pick up on over time. So, for starters, statistically speaking, the sun sign that is most prevalent in the prison system are Aries and Libra. Those cardinal energies, especially if the sun's harshly aspected, can make a person, prone to just aggressive behavior in general. A lot of times I've noticed that hard aspects from Pluto to the sun and hard aspects from Mars to the sun can definitely ramp up aggressive tendencies in individuals. Now, different signs tend to be predisposed to certain types of crime as well. Earth signs, notably Virgo and Capricorn, they tend to be highly involved in organized crime. Also, it's interesting to note that you would think the most ruthless sign in the zodiac is Scorpio, but in crimes or serious crimes, violent crimes that Capricorns tend to commit, they tend to be far more ruthless and much more cold and calculating in the way that they commit their types of offenses. So it's interesting. I myself am a Capricorn. Also, I noticed through drawing out a lot of charts for people in jail, people that were involved in violent crimes, a lot of them actually had grand trines, which not what you would expect, but let's say somebody has a trine between, I don't know, Saturn, Mars, and Pluto. Brutality and aggressive action all sort of very easily incorporated into their personality. It can make somebody who is not afraid to get their hands dirty and use violence as a way to get what they need. If you're looking at serial killers, mutable signs are by far the most overrepresented modality when you see serial killers. John Wayne Gacy is a Pisces. He also, I believe, was a Pisces moon as well. Same thing with Richard Ramirez. Remember the Night Stalker? He was a Pisces sun, Pisces moon. I have this weird thing where I see that someone show up in someone's natal chart, and I just don't really trust them all that much anymore. We also have Ted Bundy. He was another mutable sign. He had his sun and moon and Mars all in Sagittarius. Sagittariuses are believed to commit the most crimes, but they just get caught less frequently. Also, Sagittarius placements have a reputation for being a little bit lucky as well, so they just tend to get away with their shit more often. We have Ed Gein, who was a sun in Virgo. Ed Gein was the person that Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was all based off of him. And then Jeffrey Dahmer, he was a Gemini sun. You also see a lot of serial killers that have Gemini moons as well. A lot of people would say that just the mutable modality, people with heavy placements and mutable elements, it's not, I don't want to say weaker, but it is a little bit of a weaker energy. Those people tend to crack under pressure easily, especially when faced with childhood trauma. Also, when you see heavy Scorpio placements, a lot of planets in Scorpio, but those planets are challenged. I'm not saying that Scorpios are violent, but Scorpio can, at its lower level, be a violent energy. And when you see, let's say, like Mars in Scorpio plus Pluto in Scorpio, and both of those planets are like heavily challenged, there's a lot of hard aspects being made to them. It can definitely release the more difficult manifestations of those energies. You also see Pluto in the 12th house very frequently in the natal charts of serial killers. Pluto in the 12th house many times can speak of mental illness. And I'm sorry, but A lot of serial killers are sick. We all know this. Another thing to look for is the part of fortune conjunct Pluto. And dealing with Pluto, speaking of transformation and destruction, most of those people's ability to make money of any sort is destroyed by their criminal activity. So there will be no fortune for those people. So that's just a common theme you also see as well. Part of fortune conjunct Pluto. It's very, very prominent. Fire trains. Especially for people that became famous as career criminals in the early 70s to mid 80s. Many of them were born with their Pluto in Leo. So Pluto would usually be involved in a fire train. So fire train's very, very common in people that are arrested for... Also, on top of that, Aries sons tend to... Aries is the most overrepresented sign in the prison system, and they tend to get arrested for firearms charges more than anybody else. Fire trains, though, it's such an impulsive energy, and having a fire train in somebody's chart is just those energies just so well incorporated into their personality. It's easy for them to just unleash that upon whatever's standing in their way, any particular objective. You see people who have Pluto making a lot of hard aspects. Charles Manson, for instance, his Pluto was involved in a grand cross between his moon in Aquarius, his Mars in Scorpio, Pluto in Leo, and one other planet. I believe it's Saturn. Don't really quote me on that. But Pluto making a lot of harsh aspects in somebody's chart. Also, the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, his Pluto was making an inconjunct aspect to both his Mars and his Venus. So his Mars and Venus were making a yod pointing towards Pluto. That just doesn't even sound good. So that's just a nice little overview of a couple different aspects that can point to criminal behavior. Oh, another one. Sun in the 8th house. Sorry, I almost forgot that. Sun in the 8th house. Especially if it's a Virgo or a Capricorn with their sun in the 8th house. There's just, with those types of people, there is an innate attraction to the dark side of life. And they can use the energy from having that placement for much good, but in a undeveloped individual such as myself, because at one point in my life I was considered by society standards a criminal, not anymore. There's definitely always going to be an attraction to the underworld. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I'll be making more videos soon. I do consultations. Just feel free to get a hold of me. We'll work something out. And thank y'all. Till next time.